The Epstein files and narcissism and the elites, the Illuminati, what does this all have to do with each other? I think as the Epstein files have come out, we've seen that this is not a red versus blue argument. This is not an us versus our neighbor argument. This is the elites versus everybody else. There are about 15 elite families and 8 billion of us. And so I think when you step back, you recognize that they've been controlling things for a long time. And how do they control things? Through trauma and fear. Through the fear of us breaking out of the matrix, breaking out of the hamster wheel, and being out on the streets and not being able to survive. But if you really strip everything down and you look at the earth was created in such a way that we could have Eden. We could have all of the food grown from the ground. We were given animals to eat. We could all survive together as a tribe and share with each other and create a heaven on earth, create an Eden. But that the elites, these 15 families, hoarded all of the resources and then started to siphon them, give them out to us in increments based on our productivity. But we would be just fine had they not done that, because the earth was quite literally created for us to thrive. So we've all been on this hamster wheel of trying to be productive, to be basically slaves for them, while they hoard all of the wealth and they hoard all of the resources and then dole it out to us to keep us sustained, to keep us on the hamster wheel. So what does this mean for us as far as the files go and as far as what we should be doing about it? I think a lot of us are in this processing period where we're just kind of sitting back and we're assessing what we're seeing and what we're reading. We're trying to come to grips with it. But once we come to grips with it, we can definitely see that there's some supernatural side to it. There is a side to it that we were taught was fantasy, that we were taught we should just throw out, but in reality they're worshiping and they're sacrificing to these supernatural deities. So what that tells me is there is a supernatural aspect to this, and by them siphoning trauma and fear, they're able to tap into supernatural forces. And so we need to look at it as truly a good versus evil scenario. This is a good versus evil scenario. The people that are at the top, the elites, I will even say they are not fully human. There is some element to the elites that leads me to believe that there's some sort of DNA marker, or there's some sort of genetic infiltration of the human gene, which gives them almost a non-human aspect to their genome. Whether you want to call that reptilian or alien or whatever, I don't know, but they're not fully human. They're what you would call an NPC, because a fully human person couldn't do this in the depraved way that they are doing these sacrifices. There is some element of not being non-human, NPC-like, lacking empathy. Okay, what does this have to do with narcissism and empaths? Well, if you've known a narcissist in your life, if you've been traumatized by a narcissist, which I'm going to bet that almost every single person walking on planet Earth has been traumatized by a narcissist at some point, you can see how there is a real evil to them and how they truly don't have real human empathy. What if not only do we see narcissism in the elite system, but we see narcissism in our own micro family level tribal dynamics with each other, and we can weed out who is a narcissist, who lacks empathy, who lacks the ability to be truly human and have feelings, but they're just acting like a machine, just getting rid of people and destroying people emotionally who get in their way for power and dominion and control. In our own personal lives, what we have done in 2025 and maybe even in the years preceding is we have infiltrated those narcissistic people in our own personal lives, and in many cases we have cut them out. We have kicked them out of our proverbial small circle and tribe to protect ourselves and to protect our family. We have done that because we have recognized time and time again, as we try to give them grace and we try to give them chances, they continue to show up and reveal that they're only interested in power and control. And so we've had to get really, really shrewd. The people who have woken up and have been on a healing journey, we've had to get really, really shrewd with who is allowed in our sphere. And the narcissists, they get the boot, because all they do, narcissists, all they do and all they contribute besides money, many of these people are wealthy because they've learned how to be cutthroat and not care about others, therefore rise to the top and be financially wealthy. But that doesn't work for us anymore to assign them worth and value. The narcissists in our lives who many times have money, we've kicked out and we've not allowed in our inner circle anymore, because as many times as we have tried to give them grace and give them leniency and try to see the humanity, they have disappointed us time and time again and showed us that all they care about is power and control. And so now we have words for people like this: narcissism. We see how they employ narcissistic tendencies: gaslighting, blame shifting, minimizing, triangulation. We now recognize when people do these things that they are narcissists and we need to stay far away, that there is no rehabbing them. There's no allowing them back into our communities. So as we do this on the micro level, we need to do this on the macro. Thank you, honey. We need to do this on the macro level. So that means, thanks, honey. Sure. That means we need to look at not only the narcissists in our sphere and in our general area around us, our neighbors, our family members, our friends that are really not friends because they've shown us over and over again all they care about is power and control. They don't actually care about us. As we do that, we need to do that on the macro. We need to do that with our bosses. We need to do that with the people that we give our money to, the companies that are in these files, the people that are in these files, that are implicated in these files from the top down. Somebody needs to create a list of who these people are in the files and the businesses that they're affiliated with. And then we need to stop spending money in those areas. And it's going to be really hard because a lot of these people own like companies that we really enjoy, companies that are part of our everyday life, companies that we have learned, that we have grown accustomed to and that we've become dependent on. But see, that's the ruse and that's part of the matrix. That's what's keeping you stuck in the hamster wheel and keeping all of us stuck in the hamster wheel, supporting this depravity. So we need a list of all the people and all the ways that we can stop sending our money in that direction. And then we need to start relying on our close tribe that we have cultivated, because we've weeded out the narcissists, we've weeded out the NPCs, we've weeded out the people that don't show true humanity and compassion and care and kindness. We've protected ourselves from them. We've had stringent boundaries and a lot of spiritual hygiene. And we've now created this small little group around us of people we can trust that have a pure heart. Because it truly is, remember what I said earlier, it is good versus evil. It is good versus evil, even in our own families, even in our own friendships, even in our own sphere. And what we do is we come together in those small tribes, those communities, and we push the NPCs and the narcissists outside of the circle. See, what's been happening is when you let these narcissists and these NPCs into your life, whether through your friendship group or you depend on them in on a bigger stage, as far as like you give them money and you depend on them, what you're allowing is you're allowing the wolves into the sheep's, flock. You're allowing the wolves in. And so it will never be pure. It will always be infiltrated, and you will never actually get out of the hamster wheel. You'll never actually be free of this depravity and this evil. So what you have to do is figure out who are the wolves, kick them out of the tribe, and then now the tribe comes together and we care for our own. We keep the wolves and the NPCs and the narcissists outside of the circle, because what's been happening is they're allowed in it, and then they work their triangulation within the circle, and then they kick the good ones out because the good ones are a threat to them and they're a threat to their power and control. And so we recognize who those people are and we don't let them in. They're the ones that are on the outs. They're the ones that are not allowed in the tribe. Those are the ones that can just turn on themselves and go down into the underground bunkers that they've created for themselves or whatever. But we don't allow them in our sphere because we have everything we need around us to survive. So again, this is all like very basic. This is a very basic idea, but I think it's through simple things that great things happen. And it's through a concerted effort of 8 billion people to make these changes that actually yield huge results. So if somebody wants to make that list, let's make that list and spread it around. But what we can do until then is on our micro level, in our relationships with family and friends and people that we work with, start to recognize the people that are the narcissists, that are the NPCs, that are the ones that want to create division and triangulation within our communities, and get them out on the outskirts, and then start cultivating the tribe within and relying on each other and helping each other and being decent folks to one another and sharing the resources.